Coming up next, in-depth news analysis. You're listening to Korea24 from KBS World Radio.
The 2021 P4G Seoul Summit hosted by President Moon Jae-in opened on Sunday and is now in its second day. Nearly 70 global leaders and heads of international organizations are taking part in an effort to effectively respond to climate change. Ahead of the summit, South Korea on Saturday also launched a presidential commission on carbon neutrality that will oversee policies addressing climate change. The new commission will be the highest decision-making body spearheading a transition in all areas of the South Korean economy and society for the next 30 years in order to achieve the goal of going carbon neutral by the year 2050. It is jointly headed by Prime Minister Kim Buk-yeom and our guest today, Professor Sun-Jin. Professor Yun is from the Graduate School of Environmental Studies at Seoul National University, and she has joined us today to tell us more about the Seoul Summit and the new commission. Professor Yun, welcome to the studio today.
Yeah, hi. This is Sun-Jin. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we appreciate making the time coming in today. First off, could you give us a brief overview of the current situation concerning global climate change? How serious is it, and have there been any signs of improvement in recent years?
I think throughout the Industrial Revolution, greenhouse gas emitted by humankind continued to raise the global average temperature. As a result, there have happened extreme weather events such as heat waves, forest fires, droughts, and floods, and rising sea levels around the world. So it shows us how serious it is. It is not the future phenomena. It is the current phenomena. So it is our issue, to not just the future generations issue or some polar bears issue. That issue is just the issue here and now, and our issue. And the COVID-19 pandemic, which has changed our daily lives, is also blamed for excessive ecosystem destruction and climate change. So climate change has caused pandemics, and maybe in the future there will be more and more pandemics can happen. So it gives us a very emergent signal. And, thus industrial society, in particular major countries, are already actively responding to climate crisis. So now climate crisis became serious economic problem, not just weather events. So, maybe many people heard about the news since European Union declared carbon neutrality. The United States, China, Japan, and Korea have joined forces, while the European Union and the United States are considering introducing carbon border adjustment to encourage other countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, leading global companies have joined renewable energy 100% campaigns. So it means we are witnessing the changes of game rule in international market and our economic order. That is big problem, I think.
There are still people out there, including the former US President Donald Trump, who argue that climate change is not an imminent problem. How would you argue against that? How is climate change affecting our lives today and affecting our lives going forward?
I think the current international movement or people's response, or including the world leaders' response, have showed Trump he was not correct. He was he made a mistake. So, as soon as President Joe Biden became the president of the U.S., he came back to the Paris Agreement because Trump's decision was it was a failure or mistake, not just a small mistake. It is big mistake. So, nowadays EU, the US and Korea declared the Green New Deal. So And the most important issue there is to respond to climate crisis. And, last year in Korea, we have experienced the longest rainy season for 54 days. It was the first. Maybe in the future, we will have more and more severe extreme weather event, I think.
There are clear signs that we are seeing that climate change is affecting our daily lives.
And we have witnessed the changing ecosystem too. Many plants and maybe some animals have disappeared because of climate crisis.
Now, the two-day 2021 P4G summit kicked off here in South Korea on Sunday. As we said, there are 70 global leaders and heads of international organizations all taking part. The Seoul Declaration is scheduled to be announced following this summit. What can we expect to be included in that declaration?
I understand that the adoption of the Seoul Declaration will take place around 11 p.m., maybe after these interviews.
Yes.
It will be meaningful to unite the international community's commitment to realizing a carbon neutral vision through inclusive green recovery and urge the international community to implement the Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In particular, it is expected to emphasize inclusive green recovery and communication and cooperation with future generation and civil society, including developing countries and socially vulnerable people.
Now, more close to home here, as we mentioned, you are the co-chair of the new Presidential Commission on Carbon Neutrality. I believe it's called the Commission on 2050 Carbon Neutrality. Can you tell us more about this commission? What is it and what does it aim to do?
Yeah. The 2050 Presidential Commission on Carbon Neutrality is joint private public-private committee belonging to the president and is a governance body as a control tower to promote the transition to a carbon neutral society in all areas of industry, economy, and society. So it will discuss strategies and major policies for realizing carbon neutrality by 2050 based on communication with industry, civil society, etc., agricultural, or all sectors of our society. So it consists of 77 civilian members representing all walks of maybe life, including experts in the fields of climate, energy, industry and labor, civil society, and youth, and 18 ministers of related ministries. So it is big entity, big governance entity.
What about yourself, your role as a chairperson of this commission? What are your tasks and what do you hope to achieve?
I'm chair of that Presidential Commission on Carbon Neutrality. Actually, I have studied about climate crisis maybe since I was a graduate student I studied in the U.S. So I wrote my thesis and dissertation about climate change at the time. So I was a kind of a pioneer in the field of climate change. So individually...
How long ago was that?
Maybe 2 years for MA and 4 years for PhD. So it is a long time ago.
So around 30 years?
2001, I've got my PhD. So it means right after getting PhD degree, I have I have worked in the field of climate change. At that time, when I came back from the U.S., there were a few experts in the field of climate change. So individually, it is honor of me to work as a chairperson of this commission, but there are very conflicting interests, Carbon neutrality requires a whole change of our life. Actually, we should change the carbon civilization.
Right.
Our civilization is based on fossil fuel combustion. And so due to that, we have enjoyed a very nice life without very severe labor or some tough life. But now we have enjoyed very maybe nice lifestyle, but I'm not sure.
Not just change, perhaps we need sacrifice. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And I hope with your experience and your network that you've built over the years, you can help change the system here in South Korea. On that note, looking at South Korea more specifically, what are South Korea's goals in terms of reducing carbon emissions? Can you walk us through how South Korea is trying to achieve some of these goals?
Actually, maybe in terms of carbon emission from fossil fuel combustion, South Korea ranks number 7 top emitters in the world. In terms of greenhouse gas emissions, South Korea ranks 11th in the world. So it means we have a big responsibility. Climate crisis also threatens our life. But I think it is not just maybe risk itself. It gives us opportunity because climate change maybe alarms our carbon-based lifestyle is not sustainable. So based on maybe response to carbon, maybe decarbonization or maybe some carbon neutrality, we can change our life to harmonize with nature. But actually, in terms of Korea's maybe target, as you know, the president declared 2050 carbon neutrality,
right.
And so we need to develop scenarios how to get there. And actually, maybe more tough target is 2030. We already announced the 2030 national reduction target. It was maybe 37% from business as usual when it was declared first in 2015, but it was maybe changed into absolute term. In 2019, we announced our 2030 NDC. It was nationally determined contributions NDC. It was 24.4% from 2017 emission level. But all maybe international society and some active people within our country requires the government to enhance our 2030 NDC. And actually, President Moon already declared maybe we will submit enhanced 2030 NDC. Last year, maybe within his term, but last maybe World maybe summit, climate change
summit with President Joe Biden.
Year.
Right.
So he promised maybe a summit within this year, but it was changed again when he visited the U.S. and he and Joe Biden declared joint declaration. So on that declaration, it was promised to maybe submit our target before or by COP26 in this year. It will happen. Maybe it will be held in November. So before November, maybe the target will be decided.
So South Korea will set a new target by then for 2030. We have this target for 2050 carbon neutrality. Can we get there?
We should not ask, can we get there? I think that is not proper question anymore. The question we need to answer is how to get there. We cannot say, can we get there or not? There is no way. We cannot escape. We cannot avoid. So we need to take maybe responsibility and we need to take action to realize 2050 carbon neutral target. That is the answer we should give.
We have to do everything in our power to reach that target and not even ask whether it's possible. Finally, as the issue of global climate change continues to become more pressing for our future, do you have a message that you would like to deliver to our listeners out?
Yeah, I think the success or failure of achieving carbon neutrality depends on formation of national consensus and the social support. So to achieve carbon neutrality, we need to change our daily lives. So maybe industrial sector should change themselves because, as I mentioned, the world global economic rule of game has been changed. So they need to adapt themselves to change the international, maybe economic order. But, not just the industrial sector, all people's daily life should be changed. So now climate change is threatening survival of mankind, and our daily lives may be completely different within 2 or 3 years, 20-50 years, maybe it gives us a 30 years time period. But 2030 NDC, it gives us 10 years. So we do not have enough time. We change ourselves as soon as possible. But I think we have hope. It is not just a risk itself. We need to mobilize the opportunity to change our life. I hope all listeners will actively participate in the idea that carbon neutrality practice is not cumbersome and inconvenient, but natural and enjoyable, or we need to take an opportunity. So otherwise, there is no way.
Well, we appreciate you making the time to come in today and explain the whole situation for our listeners. We've been speaking to Professor Sun-Jin, Chairperson of the Commission on the 2050 Carbon Neutrality. Professor, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.